All right, ladies and gentlemen, in this video, I'm going to go over how to convert fractions to decimals. In order to convert a fraction to a decimal, you want to divide the numerator by the denominator. So I'm going to show you how you can do that. So let's say we have the fraction 4/5. We'll start off with an easier one. It says to divide the numerator by the denominator. So this is the numerator, and I'm going to set up my division problem. So my numerator is what goes on the inside as my dividend, and my denominator goes on the outside, which is my divisor. So now you're looking at this and you're probably saying 5 can't go into 4. So we're going to have to make that happen. And in order to make that happen, we're going to need to add a decimal and a 0. So we said 5 can't go into 4. We're going to take that decimal and put it up in our quotient. Now 5 can go into 40 8 times, so I'm going to put it 8. 5 times 8 is 40, and when I subtract 40 minus 40, I get 0. Now since our remainder is 0, we're good to go. So our decimal answer that we end up with is 0.8 or 8 tenths. And so I'm going to write that as 8 tenths down here at the bottom as our answer. Let's say we have the problem, or the fraction I should say, 3/8. So with 3/8, I'm going to set that up. Think of it as like the fraction toppling over this way. If the fraction were to topple over this way, we would end up with 3 here and 8 here. Now, 8 can't go into 3, so I'm going to put a 0, but we want to keep this division alive. So I'm going to add a decimal here and a decimal up in our quotient as well. I'm going to need to attach a 0. Now, 8 can go into 30 3 times. 8 times 3 is 24. And when I subtract, I end up with 6. Now we have a remainder, so we want to keep this division alive until we come with no remainder, or if we notice it's going to keep going on and on and on, then we can stop. So let's go a few more times just to see. So I'm going to add a 0 to keep the division alive. I'm going to bring down that 0, and now 8 can go into 60 7 times because 8 times 7 is 56. When I subtract 60 minus 56, I end up with 4. I'm going to go one more time just to see what happens, because if I add a 0, and bring that down, I know that 8 can go into 40 5 times, and 8 times 5 is 40. 40 minus 40 gives us 0. So we end up with having 0.375 as our answer, or 375 tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So 375 thousandths. All right, I'm going to change out my colors so they don't blend in. So let's say for our next fraction, we have 5/9. So I'm going to set up my division. 5 goes on the inside, 9 on the out. 9 can't go into 5, so I'm going to add a 0, and I'm going to put a decimal, and I'm going to add a 0 here. Now 9 can go into 50 5 times. 9 times 5 is 45. When I subtract, I get 5. 9 can't go into 5, so let's keep the division alive by adding a 0 and bringing it down. 9 can go into 50, again, 5 times. 9 times 5 is 45. Now I notice once I subtract, I get 5. It looks like this pattern's going to keep continuing. Every time I'm going to end up with a remainder of 5, bring down the 0, and I still end up with the same thing. So for this, we're going to put 0.5 with a repeating bar over it. So 5 tenths with a repeating bar. For our next fraction, let me switch up the color. Let's say we have 15/2. Now this one's a little bit different because it is an improper fraction. We still want to go ahead and put that numerator in our dividend and the 2 in our divisor. 2 can't go into 0, but 2 can go into 15 7 times. 2 times 7 gives us 14. When I subtract, I end up with 1. I want to keep the division alive, so I'm going to add a decimal and a 0. Bring the 0 down, and now 2 can go into 10. 5 times. 2 times 5 gives us 10. And when I subtract, I end up with 0. So now for my answer, I end up with 7.5. For the last one, we have 1 1/4. 1/4 is like a quarter, and a quarter is 0.25. So all you would have to do is literally bring down your 1 and 0.25. If you needed to do the division, you could